Very good evening. You're watching India Today with me, Nabila Jamal. Our top focus tonight, the Karnal violence, where Manohar Khattar, Haryana Chief Minister, was due to be meeting with the agitating farmers. Even before he could arrive, dramatic scenes ensued. In fact, Haryana witnessed quite some violence there in Karnal after hundreds of agitating protesters stormed the rally spot, vandalizing the dais from which Chief Minister Manohar Khattar was meant to speak on the benefits of the farm laws. Here are the ugly visuals that eventually turned violent.
Vandalism, water cannons, tear gas. Violent scenes were witnessed in Haryana's Karnal ahead of Chief Minister Manohar Khattar's mahapanchayat rally in Kamla village. Protesting farmers stormed the venue in a bid to prevent Chief Minister's address to farmers in favor of 3 farm laws. They vandalized the dais erected for the Chief Minister and even stormed the helipad. To stop the huge crowd from reaching the stage, Haryana police cracked down on agitating protesters at a nearby toll plaza. Protesters unfazed marched towards the stage, through fields and targeted the mahapanchayat venue. Many protesters even stormed the helipad meant for Chief Minister's chopper, preventing its landing despite repeated efforts.
कोई भी बीजेपी का मंत्री या मुख्यमंत्री या विधायकों का कोई प्रोग्राम है जिसमें वो किसानों की बात करने आ रहे हैं और काले कानूनों को ये कहने आ रहे हैं अभी ये अच्छे हैं, उसका हम हर स्तर पर विरोध करेंगे.
We are in Kamla village of Karnal, where Chief Minister Manohar Khattar was scheduled to address a kisan mahapanchayat. We can see this is the scene at the Kamla village where a stage was prepared from where Chief Minister was scheduled to address the people. On my right side you can see there are broken chairs, there are broken tables, broken flower pots which were thrown by the protesters, believed to be between 500 to 600 in numbers.
Chief Minister Manohar Khattar was forced to cancel his farmer outreach rally.
हमने कभी भी इन तथाकथित किसान नेताओं के जो वक्तव्य हैं उनको कभी रोका नहीं. उनके जो आंदोलन चल रहे हैं वो चल ही रहे हैं और उसमें तो बल्कि वहाँ पर इतनी भीड़ होने के बाद, कोविड होने के बाद भी जहाँ वहाँ इतनी भीड़ है उसमें व्यवस्थाओं में बहुत से काम हमने किए हैं. ये अच्छा नहीं कि कोई अपनी बात को कहना चाहे और हम किसी दूसरे का विरोध करें. ये लोकतंत्र का तकाजा नहीं है.
The farmers are now chasing the BJP leaders, and within 2 days, 2 such incidents have been reported in BJP-ruled Haryana. With video journalist Dilip Sahu, this is Manjeet Sehgal in Karnal for India Today.
Now, this definitely wasn't an isolated incident. Remember, several reporters along the borders who've been trying to cover the farmers' agitation have also been attacked, including those from India Today who've been targeted by the section of the farmers. Some rogue elements, whether they are farmers or just infiltrators, it's still unclear. But this is indeed bringing bad name to the protest. We're definitely not trying to discredit the protest here, the farmers' agitation, as much as the media people are there to cover it with respect. It doesn't seem like those there at the spot are receiving the same treatment. Here's what happened with several reporters being attacked along the border areas.
It's an agitation that has already etched itself in history. Whatever their stand on farm laws, but most of India's heart has bled in empathy for our farmers in protest for over 45 days. An indefinite protest by lakhs and lakhs, squatting at the capital's borders, knocking repeatedly on Delhi's door, demanding complete rollback of farm laws. These protests saw our Annadatas' altruism at supreme levels, the sense of community, of solidarity. Many from all walks of life joined in to express brotherhood with our farmers who brave intense cold with minimal gear. But like in every large crowd, there is a risk of mob mentality. What's disheartening is that few under the garb of protest hidden behind large crowds have turned on the media to harass journalists, sometimes even sexually. India Today reporters have been covering the farmer protests since day one and have had enough instances to record this depravity. In this instance, our reporter was surrounded by this mob, intimidated just for doing her job.
एक जिम्मेदार ने अग लाई असी लवाई आ असी अपने कोल आ के लवाई आने आ असी उगराहां जथेबंदी वालों अपनी जिम्मेवारी असी लवाई है अग जो पर्चा करना साडे ते होवे जिन्ना चिर इथों माफी नहीं मंगदे सातों असी इन्हां नूं जाण नहीं दिंदे असी बन्ने होए ने इत्थे बिठा ले.
In this instance, a reporter during a live bulletin was harassed by an angry mob. Male reporters have been target of inexplicable violence. In this instance, our reporter Maushumi was surrounded by a flurry of protesters. Overwhelmed with the surging crowds, she pleaded with the farmers, and there was more good than bad that day, as a sizable group made a ring around her, escorting her to their vehicle. Proving the fact that not all protesters are guilty, as some came to her rescue.
कभी-कभी हम इस तरह की सिचुएशन में भी फंसते हैं जब हम लोग सिंगू बॉर्डर से टीकरी जा रहे थे तो यहाँ पे तमाम किसानों ने हम लोग को घिराव कर लिया. ये संजीव है हमारे कैमरा पर्सन और यहाँ पे अभी हम लोग बाहर निकलने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. यहाँ पे आप देखिए कुछ इस तरह की तस्वीर है जहाँ पे चारों तरफ ट्रैक्टर हैं. बहुत लोगों ने हम लोग की मदद की है ताकि हम लोग बाहर निकल सकें. और एक तरफ हम लोग का पूरी तरह से घिराव हो गया था. लगातार कुछ मिसकम्युनिकेशन और जिस तरह से प्रचार चल रहा है उसको लेके कई बारी मीडिया को निशाना बनाया जाता है. हालांकि हम लोग डे 1 से कवरेज कर रहे हैं, पर यहाँ पे जिस तरह से हम लोग को पूरा घिराव हो गया था उसके बाद बड़ी मुश्किल से इन लोगों ने ये लोग हैं ये हैं जिन्होंने मदद करके यहाँ से बाहर निकाला है.
One of our female colleagues, whose name we won't disclose, was subject to physical groping. We have since lodged a police complaint. Violence, anger, and sometimes sexual assault are the unfortunate hallmarks of any massive crowd, and here there are lacks. This is not to discredit the farm agitation, but the farmers would be doing themselves the biggest disservice by letting a sizable chunk of depraves to continue to attack the media. Bureau Report, India Today.
You saw those visuals are indeed disturbing. Definitely hasn't deterred our reporters from doing their job on ground. Even now, all our reporters who've been attacked there at the border areas are still reporting by the borders. But this surely is about time that we call out the kind of attack and harassment that's been happening along those areas. Let's take a listen firsthand at what our reporters had to say who are privy to such instances. They've told my colleague Preeti Chaudhary. Here's their account.
The facts and each and every detail of what's happening on the ground, and that's what I was exactly doing when that tractor parade did happen. And in the middle of nowhere, while we were on the expressway, we were doing a live, and that live is available on the social media. There were some elements who were trying to climb up the truck. They climbed the truck and then started sloganeering, and they asked me to get down, and then they followed followed me for the next 15 minutes. Me and my video journalist Sanjeev Kumar, we were surrounded and there was constant sloganeering. I kept telling them that we are just doing a job. We've been reporting from day one, and even your leaders don't want this to happen. So remember, there were only few elements who started this all up, and then in the mob mentality, people just followed and joined chorus, and we were surrounded and hounded for good some 10-15 minutes. But then it was some good elements, some farmers from that same crowd who always come out to save you, and they realize that what's happening is not right. It will be a great disservice to the entire agitation, and because of those farmers, those youngsters, we are alive and safe. Had it been one more minute and we would have been badly attacked, because the crowd was getting very, very aggressive, and they in fact ferried us out, traveled almost more than 15 kilometers in their own car, constantly saying this is an emergency hai, emergency hai. They told us to cover our faces, and then they ferried us out to a safe place. So that thanks to those farmers that we are safe and alive today.
Well, Preeti, definitely I would say to begin with, it was a terrifying thing to happen. We were on our way back from Patiala, we were en route to Delhi, and we saw some stubble burning, and that was in fact the story which I had gone to cover. So we got down and we started shooting. It was a little away from the highway, it was not exactly on the highway. We were just shooting, we were speaking to the people there, and suddenly I see in a span of 5 minutes, there were 40 people who surrounded us. It was 5 o'clock. They forced us to apologize for just doing my job, and because it was 5 and this happened during winters, it was the one thing which was in my mind was to just leave the spot, because one of them had started telling me that he will hold me along with my camera person hostage. He also told me he will take me inside the village. Now that in fact was very terrifying, and they kept on asking me to apologize. I thought it was fit to apologize. I apologized, and only then did they make way for us. But then too, they had surrounded our car when we sat in the car, and a couple of young boys there were adamant on burning our car down. It was only when the elders present there said, she has apologized, just let us move on. So this is exactly what had happened. But yes, those were terrifying 30-35 minutes, which only happened because I was doing my job and nothing.
This incident that happened with me was on the 29th of December, and what is as my colleague Ashwarya was also saying, is the elders and some people tried to intervene, but there was a huge group of men who surrounded me and my cameraman. My cameraman Ajay Thakur was also subject to beating. He was he was kicked multiple times. They tried to take my camera from us, surrounded us, and what was terrifying to me was the fact that they surrounded us and wouldn't let go. This is when we tried to move from there, the crowd followed us. When we tried to get into an auto and leave from there, and this is, by the way, about 6 kilometers inside the protest at the Singhu border, which is a protest that has been going on for several days and is several kilometers long. We tried to get out of there. They surrounded the auto. They wouldn't let the auto move, and it is only when I called the leaders of the protest. In fact, this is something that we'll have to emphasize, that the leaders of the protest said that we'll come and protect you. In fact, they came with me to file a complaint to the police. They've since also called and extended their support to me, but this crowd of about 30 to 40 men that surrounded us, chased us for almost a kilometer, that has been terrifying. So this is something that is also maligning the image of the protest itself, because there are thousands of people sitting there peacefully protesting, but there are people who are trying to attack the media as well, and this is not just happening once but multiple.
कवरेज कर रहे थे, कवरेज के दौरान एक तरफ पुलिस टीयर गैस फेंक रही थी, तो दूसरी तरफ से फार्मर्स जो थे वो पत्थर फेंक रहे थे, और मैं अकेला नहीं, मेरा जो कैमरामैन है उसे 1 घंटा डेली अब हॉस्पिटल में जाना पड़ता है। उसके शोल्डर पे, कंधे पे बहुत चोट लगी है और उसको डेली फिजियोथेरेपी करानी पड़ती है। मेरा, आपने देखा कि मेरे यहाँ पर पूरा जो है 4 स्टिचेज आए थे और तकरीबन 7 दिन तक मुझे बेड रेस्ट पे रहना पड़ा, और उसके बाद जो है ये सिचुएशन आपके सामने है। तो ये एक फैशन बन गया है इन दिनों में कि मीडिया जब भी कवर करती है, पुलिस वाले सोचते हैं कि वो हमारा एंगल नहीं दिखा रही, जो दूसरी पार्टी है, चाहे किसान हो या कोई हो, वो लगता है कि वो हमारी बात नहीं रख करे, जबकि मीडिया एक न्यूट्रल निष्पक्ष होती है। हमारा काम जो सिर्फ सच्चाई है उसको दिखाना है। हम किसी के फेवर में, किसी के पक्ष में, किसी के अगेंस्ट, किसी के खिलाफ नहीं होते हैं, और ये बात शायद समझ में नहीं आ रही है। मीडिया को कोसना दोनों तरफ से, चाहे वो पुलिस हो या फिर जो एजिटेशन कर रही है पार्टी, एक फैशन बन गया है, और शायद इसका भुगतान हमें इस तरीके से करना पड़ता है कि देखिए, मैं आपके सामने खड़ा हुआ हूँ, मेरा, और ये एक सिचुएशन थी कि मैं बच गया। अगर ये चोट और भी गहरी होती, क्योंकि जो है ब्रेन इंजरी है, बिल्कुल सर पे लगा है, हेड पे, यहाँ ब्रेन होता है, अगर थोड़ी सी और गहरी ये इंजरी होती तो शायद मैं इसका जवाब किससे मांगता, शायद ये मेरे अभी भी समझ से बाहर है।
Horrifying accounts from our own journalists here of India Today who speak on what they experienced along the borders, and like I did mention, these are not isolated incidents. In fact, farmers have largely said that they're carrying out peaceful protests. So the question arises, who are these rogue elements? How are the farmers allowing these elements to actually, literally surround the areas and corner journalists who are actually doing their job? Sardar R.P. Singh joining us, BJP spokesperson, Ashok Balyan, farmer leader, to give us a perspective here. Ashok Balyan ji, आपका ये करनाल वायलेंस के बारे में क्या कहना है?
देखिए, हमेशा हिंसा को कंडम किया जाना चाहिए, उसकी निंदा की जानी चाहिए, लेकिन मुझे दुख के साथ कहना पड़ रहा है कि पिछले 45 दिनों से किसान भाइयों में एक उत्तेजना भरी जा रही है, भ्रम के जाल के द्वारा उत्तेजना भरी जा रही है। मैं ये नहीं कहता कौन भर रहा है, लेकिन भरी जा रही है। उनको कहा जा रहा है कि ये अंतिम लड़ाई है। क्या किसान की समस्या इन 3 कानूनों के वापस लेने से खत्म हो जाएगी? क्या अंतिम लड़ाई खत्म हो जाएगी? पहले आप उत्तेजना भरो,
ये और लोग फिर कौन है? ये किसान ही है क्या जो वायलेंस कर रहे हैं? किसान है?
देखिए, हम लोग नेता क्या करते हैं, पहले किसानों को उत्तेजित करते हैं, फिर कहते हैं कि ये असामाजिक तत्व होंगे, हमारे किसान भाई नहीं है। मैं जानता हूं कि वैसे किसान भाई सीधे कभी हिंसा में विश्वास नहीं रखते, लेकिन जब किसी व्यक्ति में आप भ्रम के आधार पर, झूठ के आधार पर उसमें उत्तेजना भरोगे तो उत्तेजना का,
आपसे पूछ रही हूँ, अगर किसान बिल्कुल अहिंसा में विश्वास नहीं करते तो ये लोग कौन है? यहाँ पर जो विजुअल दिख रहा है, लोग कौन है? हमारे रिपोर्टर्स को बहुत बार असॉल्ट किया गया है।
ये मुझे सच कहने में कोई हिचक नहीं है कि ये लंदन से नहीं आए, कोई बाहर से नहीं आए, ये हमारे अपने लोग हैं जिनको नेताओं के द्वारा उत्तेजना भरी जा रही है 45 दिनों से कि सरकार के साथ ये अंतिम लड़ाई है। मैं कभी भी इस तरह के आंदोलन में, मैं चौधरी महेंद्र सिंह टिकैत साहब के साथ काम किया है, वो हमेशा हिंसा के घोर विरोधी रहते थे और उनके सामने किसी की हिम्मत नहीं थी कि कोई इस तरह के वायलेशन का काम करे और फिर वो चुपचाप बैठे रहे। वो कभी नहीं करते थे बिल्कुल भी। और मुझे वो दिन भी याद है जिस दिन बीकेयू एक बार हिंसा में शामिल हो गई थी, तो चौधरी महेंद्र सिंह टिकैत ने बीकेयू को भंग कर दिया था। बहुत मुश्किल से फिर देश के किसान नेताओं ने उनको मना किया था। वो कहते थे कि हम हिंसा से कुछ नहीं कर सकते। वो बम्बई में मेरे आज भी याद है,
प्रोटेस्ट जब शुरू हुआ, किसान ने जो बॉर्डर पे आए थे, उन्होंने प्रॉमिस किया कि ये पीसफुल प्रोटेस्ट होगा और ये पीसफुली कंटिन्यू होगा। वो उन्होंने साफ साफ बोल दिया था कि कोई ऐसे एलिमेंट्स अगर आ गए तो वो दूर रखेंगे उनको। मगर यहाँ तो दिख रहा है कि किसान ही वायलेंस में घुस रहे हैं। Sardar R.P. Singh, BJP spokesperson joining us. Mr. Singh, here we're looking at farmers indulging in violence, not just in Haryana there, in Karnal, but also attacking journalists there on ground. Do you think this is a repercussion of the months of agitation which seems to be unheard by the centre? The BJP not visiting the spot, speaking with the farmers directly, only waiting for them to come to Vigyan Bhavan for a formal talk, but otherwise there's no leader addressing the farmers' agitation at all. Not even taking a look at what's happening in the border areas, leaving them to the thick of the cold, to the kind of weather conditions, the rains, you know what's happening in Delhi. Despite that, there's no leader actually visiting the spot. Do you think this is the frustration that the farmers are letting out?
Nabila, you could see the condition of Mosmi, Anisha, Ashura, and Satinder. If they're not allowed, I mean, just your team, there are more reports from other team. I was on another channel. The women journalists were gogged. They also filed some complaint. So if they are doing this with journalists, what do you think they will accept us? Let me share with you, in Amritsar, my office were burnt. My party president car was smashed. My leaders are being my leaders, when I say leaders, mean people who are contested MLAs, they are being harassed. 1,500 towers were being targeted, dismantled, or they were targeted. So this is not peaceful agitation. You can't put this as a peaceful agitation. If they are targeting the public properties, they are targeting individuals, they are targeting media people, then it's no more a peaceful agitation. We have been day in and day out saying, come, sit in Buradi. That's the place, designated place. But they know, no, Buradi is a jail. So that myth has been created. The myth has been created that your land will be grabbed. Government says that we are permitting even writing. Myth has been created that MSP is going. The myth has been created. The falsehood has been spread. And this is not the first time. This has been done again and again on various issues. It has been done. Similarly, something was done on CA also, where it was said, oh, you lose your citizenship, you'll be thrown out of the country. Whereas CA was nothing to do with India.
Do you think, Mr. Singh, this is more a frustration that's now falling out, where the farmers are almost trying to show that 2 months we protested silently and peacefully. Now, don't take us for granted, because we are seated here. Don't take our silence for granted. And if they have to turn violent, they will. And that's what they did in Karnal. Not justifying it, but do you think this is what really is panning out, a larger sentiment?
Nabila, we are seeing it today, but this has happened in Punjab. When 1,500 towers were targeted, it never happened in a day. It took almost a week. And this is almost a fortnight back. So, who is doing so? One can say, no, they are not farmers. There are some disgruntled elements, or there are some people who lost their farm.
That's precisely what was assumed initially, and then over time we see that those are the same people who are sitting there in agitation. They are having the same langar alongside the other farmers. They are being taken care of alongside the other peaceful agitating farmers as well. So this is the same flock. They can't say it's outsider infiltrated people. I'd like to ask Mr. Balyan. अशोक बलियान जी, आप कैसे कंट्रोल करोगे? ये तो हाथ से निकल गया. आपके जो एजिटेशन है उसका तो बुरा नाम आ गया. अब
देखिए, तब तक ये हमारे किसान नेता जगतार सिंह हरारा के पोस्टर लगाने के बाद भी कहेंगे कि हम पीसफुल है. शाहीन बाग में अपनी सेवा देने वाले वहां रहेंगे, फिर भी कहेंगे कि हम पीसफुल हैं. जो शाहीन बाग में सेवा दे रहे थे, क्या दिल्ली में 50 लोगों की हत्या नहीं हुई? क्या सीए के कारण देश में अरबों रुपए की संपत्ति का नुकसान
हुआ? तो क्या आप शाहीन बाग की प्रोटेस्ट की तरफ जा रहे हैं क्या?
नहीं, ये लोग जो वहां सेवाएं दे रहे हैं, अब हमारे किसान भाइयों को ये झूठी सेवाएं क्यों दे रहे हैं? मैं आज भी इस चैनल के माध्यम से अपील करता हूं कि किसान भाइयों को अपना प्रोटेस्ट शांतिपूर्वक जारी रखें. ऐसे तत्वों से और उकसाने से काम नहीं चलेगा. आप सरकार के साथ बातचीत कर रहे हैं, बातचीत से मामला सुलझाइए.
क्या आप ये कहेंगे जिन्होंने ऐसी अहिंसा की है उनको अरेस्ट किया जाए?
बिल्कुल. अगर देश में कानून का राज नहीं होगा तो ऐसे तो गुंडागर्दी चलती रहेगी. मैं भी करता रहूंगा, आप भी करते रहिएगे. क्या हमारे रिपोर्टरों के साथ में जो मैं अभी सुन रहा था, क्या ये मानवीय व्यवहार था? ये क्या उनके कैमरा तोड़ना, उनको साथ में जबरदस्ती करना कोई अच्छा व्यवहार था? ये किसी भी प्रोटेस्ट में नहीं होता. शांतिपूर्वक प्रोटेस्ट हमेशा कामयाब होता है. हमारे देश में हम क्यों नक्सलवादियों की आलोचना करते हैं, क्यों हिंसा की आलोचना करते हैं?
किसान अब क्या करने वाले हैं? कोई कुछ अर्जेंट मीटिंग बुलाया गया है ऐसे वायलेंस को कंडेम करने के लिए? कुछ इनिशिएटिव लिया है?
मैं आपके माध्यम से फिर भी कहना चाहता हूं अपने किसान नेताओं से कि आप ये मत करिए, बिल्कुल भी अपनी मांगे रखिए, लेकिन उत्तेजना का काम मत करिए. आप लाखों लोगों की भीड़ लेकर बैठे हुए हो, अगर आप उत्तेजना फैलाओगे तो उसका एक दिन रिजल्ट हिंसा का भी हो सकता है. जो देश को सभी को भारी पड़ेगा, वो अच्छी बात नहीं है.
Sardar R.P. Singh, to tell the people who are agitating that the farming community at large, who we respect, they are our annadatas. We understand their sentiment and their grouse. We know that they're hurt. It's been months that they're agitating. We're also hoping that the BJP government reaches out to them adequately, not just on a stage away from the protest site. Maybe reach out to the interiors of the protest site, speak to them one-on-one. That would sort of calm them down. And your word to them on a final note here.
Nabila, let me ask Hanan Mola, Darshan Pal, Dr. Darshan Pal, Joginder Singh Ogran, Rakesh Tikat, had this girl who had been gouged, their daughter, what would have been their reaction?
True.
When I'm giving you names. Let Rakesh Tikat answer this. उनकी बेटी के साथ कोई इस प्रकार से
there are women, there are children, there are older women at that agitation site. They're all there seated. Our reporters have seen them, spoken to them. So it's nothing is justifying the violence here. But RP Singh, thank you very much for what you've highlighted here. We're hoping that the farmers are listening. The farmer leaders are taking note of this kind of violence that's ensued here in Karnal. Unacceptable. What they've done to the journalists, pushing them away. Of course, it's not deterred the journalists, but undoubtedly this violence, this harassment must be called out. Ashok Balyanda giving us a farmer's perspective. Thank you very much for joining us with those details. Thank you for watching.